Hey friends, Crystal here from Galaxy Finds, and I have a different type of video for you today. I've really been kind of psyching myself out for this because I don't usually do educational videos because I get a little nervous and I kind of feel like an imposter when I do these sort of things because I am in no way an expert, but it seems that lately people have been seeking my advice about vintage items, and I have been selling vintage for about 5 years. So I guess I have that much knowledge. So take what you will from it, and just know that my word is not the be all in the vintage world. So I've made some notes here in my handy dandy alien notebook, and today I want to talk about vintage sizing. I've had a lot of people talk to me about vintage sizing, and I feel like people are very torn on how to list their vintage with an accurate size. So I'm going to tell you how I've been doing it for at least the past 4 years, and I'm going to tell you what works for me. You can always comment and tell me what works for you. You don't have to do this, but this is what I do. I am going to look at my notes now. Can you tell I'm a little nervous and flustered? I don't get this when I do my hauls because I'm just playing off whatever's in the bag, but I have to actually give you guys facts now, so. Alright. I am going to put up a chart that I found literally through Google. And you can always use this for approximate sizing, but how I do sizing, I'll put a picture of how I store my jeans, okay? So I put the number size, the 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, whatever, and then I put the corresponding waist size above it. So when I measure a piece of vintage clothing and I measure the waist size, I usually will go by that chart. So if I measure something with a 26-inch waist, I'm probably going to mark that as a small. And yeah, maybe it's, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but I've never ever had a case open against me for marking something as the size that it is, not the size on the tag when it comes to vintage. And a lot of people will fight you in Poshmark groups and say, don't ever list an item that from not the size on the tag. So I actually pulled some examples to show you what I mean. And I will say with vintage, never ever listen to that. It would not make sense for you to list an item as the size on the tag if it is nowhere near that size. Alright, let me show you this dress I have right here. So I'm gonna pop up my listing for this dress. So this dress, it's a maxi dress. It's from the 70s. It's really cute. I'm gonna show you, this is a size 14 according to this. I also picked things that are around my modern day size so I could just show you. So I'm a modern day size 14. And I honestly did try this dress on, and it is nowhere near my size. So if I was just the regular person shopping vintage dresses, and I was shopping for a size 14, and you had this dress and you marked it a size 14, maybe I wouldn't look at the measurements. Maybe I would just say, oh, that's a pretty dress, I really like it, I'm gonna buy it. And then I would get it, and as a buyer, I would be disappointed. But if you saw this dress and it was marked as a size large or 10, this would fit you, and you would be the correct audience that this was trying to reach. So marking this dress a size 14 could probably get you in more trouble, because the person would say, you didn't say that this fit 3 sizes smaller than it is. But if you are marking this a size 10 or size large, I think I marked it a large because it does have a little give, you would be reaching the people that are looking for that size. And I always put in the description Size on the tag is size 14. Please refer to measurements, and always, always put measurements in your vintage listings because vintage sizes do run much smaller. So there are very few times when I have marked vintage items as the size on the tag, and sometimes you come across a piece that actually does fit, like a modern day size, whatever. I always still put the measurements in it, no matter what, because vintage is fickle and people want to know what the measurements are. So I will tell you this too. So when I'm searching for vintage on Poshmark, I actually look for those listings that are marked as the size on the tag, because I find that these people are basically giving away their vintage items because the people that they're trying to reach are not finding it. Like, I source a lot of vintage off Poshmark. I sourced some gorgeous items recently for cheaper than I'd get them at the thrift store because people are trying to give them away. And I really feel like that's because they're not marking them as the size that they should be. So there's the dress. I also brought out a pair of jeans. These jeans are also 70s era. These jeans are from Sears, and they are marked a size 16, if you can see that. These jeans will not even fit like over my hips, and I'm a modern day 14. So I think I have these marked as a 10. I'll put up the listing, but if I was to mark these pants as a 16, somebody that's a size 16 would see them and say, either one, they wouldn't look at the measurements and they would just buy them and then they wouldn't fit. And they'd probably open a case, and knowing Poshmark lately, they'd probably get approved. Or they would see the measurements and say, that's way too small for me. Those will never fit me. They'll click out of your listing and keep going. But when you mark these as a 10 or 12 or whatever, that person is going to see that listing and say, oh, okay, that's my size. And even though the size on the tag says 16, if they go down to the description, say size on the tag is 16, these are 1970s jeans and they fit like a 12. So that's how I list my stuff, and I make sure I put measurements for the waist, hips, inseam for jeans. For dresses, I do from armpit to armpit because, you know, that's what most people on Poshmark are accustomed to. The waist and the length from shoulder to hem. Sometimes people will ask you for additional measurements, but usually not. Like, if it's like a jacket or something, sometimes people ask for like either shoulders or for sleeve length. Like, and that depends if you really want to, you know, list additional measurements. If you don't, it's fine. Someone else will probably buy it. But I feel like those measurements are pretty standard, and if you list those measurements in your vintage listings, you will sell your vintage. Vintage is my #1 performing brand on Poshmark by a landslide. And I see so many people say that they cannot move vintage, and or they, you know, they try to move vintage and they, you know, they mark it all the way down and they're like, it doesn't sell for anything. Like, I've sold some pretty expensive vintage pieces on Poshmark and I don't have trouble moving it. So, okay. Yes, I showed you my examples from my closet, but I would say always list your vintage pieces as a modern size. The size on the tag does not matter. It doesn't matter because it is not that size in modern sizing anymore. And people are looking for their modern size. People, they don't know what their 1960s size is, most likely. And, you know, I sold a dress one time. This is the biggest one that I can think of. I sold a dress one time. It was marked a size 14. It was from the 1950s. It barely fit on my size 4 mannequin. And if I had marked that as a 14, I would have never sold it. I ended up selling it for over $100 and it sold immediately. So people know what they're looking for. So I would say Like, I mean, I'm sure that there are people that have had cases open against them for this reason. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying it's never happened to me, and I'm saying if it's never happened to me and this is my #1 selling brand, that it probably doesn't happen that often. So, trust me. I'm no expert, but I do love selling vintage, and I think that I've done it long enough now where my opinion, you know, can matter a bit. But if you listen to this lengthy spiel here, thank you so much. Thank you to my friends who have kind of pushed me to do this, and if you guys want to see any more vintage tidbits from me, comment, let me know what you want to hear about. I can give my opinions on really anything vintage related. If you want to know what, like, vintage trending, if you want to know what sells best in vintage, if you want to know vintage brands, like, I really don't know. I just wanted to try this out and see how people felt about it. So if you watch this, thank you so much. Give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and I hopefully will have another video out next week.